Blaves, we're always on your side.
What's up, everybody? This is Stephen A. Smith, host of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast. Tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the very least as I bring you.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's 3 o'clock NBA Draft tomorrow at 5. Our coverage will start at 3. Rip City Drive live from Moda Center with Dwight and Chad. From the Trailblazers Draft Party, which kicks off at 5. Doors open prior at 4. Travis Demers and Francis Williams anchor the Blazers coverage starting at 4:30 throughout the evening, finishing off with Joe Cronin's press conference. Aaron Fentress, Oregonian, will join the show today at 5:20. Dave Deckard, Blazers Edge, is coming up at 3:20. Elsewhere, OG Anunoby has opted out of his deal with the Knicks and will enter free agency, passing on an option year worth $19.9 million on the diamond. Luis Castillo on the bump tonight as the Mariners look to get off the schneid. They've dropped 5 of their last 6. Game 2 against the Rays. That first pitch at 3:50. Seattle's leading the AL West now just 5.5 games. Houston has won 5 straight. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has softened his stance, would be open to joining the Yankees if the Jays made a trade. Toronto last place in the AL East. All right, what's going on? Very happy to be with you today on this fabulous, warm and sunny day in the Portland area. Chris Burkhardt is on board in for Michael Shacker, who is under the weather today. The Godfather Dwight James is here. And just a friendly reminder that tomorrow the NBA Draft is going to kick off at 5, but we're going to be down at Moda Center with the Rip City Drive at 3. The Trailblazers will continue their coverage at 4:30 throughout the rest of the evening. The Trailblazers free draft party is at 5, but the doors will open up prior to that. So come down and join us. We'll be at Moda Center as we cover the draft. The Portland Trailblazers have 2 picks, as you know, 7 and 14. So we're all going to be there. Dwight and I and Chris all down at Moda tomorrow. And then after that, Dwight and Chris are going to head out to the practice facility. So we're going to have everything covered. Travis Demers, Francis Williams, who joined us yesterday, will provide their insight. So it's going to be a big day. Godfather, good to see you, my friend.
Well, it's good to be seen, Chad. It's happy to be here today, actually.
Yeah, it's great. It was so beautiful this morning. The golf course was perfect. It was warm, and my body felt good. I love this weather so much. I just don't want it to end, man. It is heaven outside right now. Spectacular. It makes me feel good. I love it. What can I say, man? I've been waiting all year for this.
I don't know. I'm just stunned by your behavior this morning.
I've got a horrendous golfer's tan going on right now, though. There's a clear distinction between the pale part of my body and the tan part of my body.
That's okay.
Nobody
sees the pale part.
No, it's good, man. I'm just happy to be here. And we got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops today. It's Hops Ticket Tuesday. We'll give those away at 5. and a chance for you to sit in the Rip City Radio row. Also, if you want to join us on our YouTube stream, we're up and going right now. You can go to youtube.com, pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. I want to get your reaction to Game 7, Stanley Cup Final last night, which was a sensational game. The ending was awesome, Edmonton and Florida. But first things first, I want to play this for you because it makes me laugh. And I think it makes Burkhart laugh, and I know it does you. But we just came across this clip from yesterday's press conference with the Lakers' new head coach, J.J. Redick. He was announced, and they brought him out for the press conference yesterday. But this portion is hilarious. I want you to take a listen to the question, and then as J.J.'s giving his response, which is probably poppycock, you can hear something in the background where it almost says it sounds like someone saying, "Come on, man, what are you talking about?" But it's definitely a groan. But Dwight just sent me the clip and said the groan is funny, and he wasn't lying. Take a listen to this. J.J. Redick yesterday at the press conference as he's announced as the new head coach of the L.A. Lakers.
That you have a very close relationship with LeBron. He could have done a podcast with anybody in the world. He chose to do it with you. What was his advice to you throughout this whole coaching?
First off, how annoying is that?
Real
LeBron
annoying.
could have chosen anyone else in the world to do a podcast with, but he chose you.
Lucky you.
Who is he, the Messiah?
I know.
Gosh, it's so embarrassing. The ball washing that goes on down there with LeBron is over
it's
the top.
unbelievable how they fawn over that guy. It really is. It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
You're supposed to be in the media. Come on.
J.J. Redick, LeBron could have chosen anyone on the planet to do a podcast with, but he chose you.
The only thing she left out is happy birthday, JJ.
Oh, my gosh. I'll let you guys rant on that for a moment. Hey, Burkhart, how much does it annoy you at a press conference when a credentialed member of the media, before asking a question, butters it up with, "Happy birthday, JJ"?
Nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. Either that or what's the other one? Congratulations on getting the job.
Oh, yeah. And then when every single member of the media does it, oh, come on, guys. Just ask a question.
All right. That's pretty annoying. He could have chose anyone, but he chose you. All right, let's take a listen to the groan because it's solid.
That you have a very close relationship with LeBron. He could have done a podcast with anybody in the world. He chose to do it with you. What was his advice to you throughout this whole coaching search process?
He didn't provide any advice. LeBron and I did not talk about the Lakers' job until Thursday afternoon, about 30 minutes after I was offered the job.
What a classic.
That was a good one. He's like, ah.
LeBron and I did not talk about the Lakers' job until Thursday afternoon.
I'm surprised JJ didn't get ticked off at whoever made that sound and was like, "Hey, F off, man."
It's like, I was just reading Justin Tremaine on X, and he was saying calling others engagement farmers, which is what he did during that, when he spent the last few years ripping past legends just for attention. What a phony.
Oh, my
He
goodness.
is a bit of a phony when he tells little fibs like that one.
I did laugh 'cause I saw on Twitter after Kenny Atkinson got announced as the hire for Cleveland, someone said he's really has an uphill battle because he has zero podcast experience.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that. First off, the idea that somehow LeBron was not involved in the coaching search and had no discussion or input for JJ throughout the process, I think if you believe that, then you'll believe just about anything. I don't buy it at all.
No.
And I don't understand why it's so important for LeBron to distance himself from J.J. Redick and the whole process. There's nothing wrong with a star player giving his input on what he wants the team to do. Why is that an issue? Why does he try to distance himself from that?
Because if it doesn't turn out well, he doesn't want the blame.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, I
He doesn't
guess
want to
that
get
makes
blamed.
a little bit of sense. But, dude, I think it's kind of cool to be able to wield that type of power. It's kind of cool to be able to be like, yeah, I'm going to help be a part of the process because I think I know at this stage of my career, 20 years in, on what type of coach I'm going to work best with. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have an issue with it. What I have an issue with is when people pretend like something never happened that we know happened. It's nonsense. It does make me want to go, ah.
Play that again, please.
It's so good. Take a listen to this. Just listen to the guy go, ah. Sounds like me when I'm doing my morning constitution.
That you have a very close relationship with LeBron. He could have done a podcast with anybody in the world. He chose to do it with you. What was his advice to you throughout
so
this whole coaching search process?
Lies.
He didn't provide any advice. LeBron and I did not talk about the Lakers job until Thursday afternoon, about 30 minutes after I was offered the job.
That's an all-timer right there.
But,
That
you
is-
know, LeBron is known for being the most passive-aggressive guy, too. The idea that he didn't talk to him had nothing to do with it, nothing at all. But then it'll start. If this doesn't work out, all the little things will start, you know.
I've had a
little
couple of
digs.
girlfriends like that, too, passive-aggressive.
Until Thursday afternoon. Till Thursday afternoon.
I'm sorry. I can't stop laughing at that. It's just unbelievable.
Oh, that's so good. What did you think about Game 7 last night? The cup remains in the United States.
Yes,
That's
where
got to
it
drive the
belongs.
Canadians so
Yes.
mad.
Yeah, it's now our sport, by the way. We own that sport now. They don't anymore. They've given it
Sorry,
up.
Canada.
Yeah, how long do we get to have it before we declare that we're the owners?
That's really what you get for having round bacon, though. Seriously. Our bacon is round.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
We have Canadian bacon.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Chad, the last 5 minutes were incredible, as they are usually in a game like that, where you see the desperation to tie the game and the desperation to keep them from tying the game.
It's so good.
That one play in front of the goal mouth was just where McDavid was right there with an opportunity.
Can't believe he didn't score.
I know, and people are diving across in front of him. Guys are willing to give up their grill just to stop a goal, putting their whole mouthful of teeth in front of that 100-mile-an-hour puck. I mean, it's amazing stuff. It's really fun.
It was riveting.
Yeah.
It was riveting. I really thought Edmonton was going to get it done. And I can't imagine being a goalie in that situation where it's just open season, man.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're coming, and we're going to do everything we can to get one past you and put it in the net.
That's what it's like being the goalie for a dart team. You know, there's all kinds of darts flying at you here. I was going to ask you too, Chad. I'm seeing so many people saying, oh, we just love it at the end of the Stanley Cup Finals when they all shake hands. Do you like that? Is that a meaningful thing for you?
I just don't care one way or the
me
other.
either.
I couldn't care
But
less.
I've seen enough hockey to know that in the playoffs, that's what they always do.
I mean, I'm fine if that's part of it. Like, if that's the tradition and that's how they want to handle it, that's fine. It seems a lot more legitimate and genuine than it does with those lineups at the end of college basketball games.
Or high school games.
Yeah.
Where nobody knows anybody and they're just slapping
Good game,
hands
good
on the
game,
wing.
good game.
Yeah, exactly. That's no good.
The reason why I don't like that is I've never thought it was bright to put athletes in an emotionally charged situation immediately after the game.
100% agree.
Fights are going to happen when you do that.
Absolutely. And they have all over the country. That's been the scene for a lot of fights.
Especially if you just absorbed like a package kick of a loss, and then you've got to line up and, you know, fist bump or high five the opposing team. Like, they haven't had a moment to recover or cool down. Give them a cooling off moment before you send them around and start bumping into the other players. It's weird to me.
Yeah,
That's all.
I've always liked the sort of casual. The game is over. If you know a guy in the other team, you meet in the middle of the ice or the middle of the field. You put your arm around him, say "nice going," or whatever. A guy you really respect on the other team, fine.
Yeah.
Just don't force it on anybody. Somebody should be able to go back to the locker room if their temperature's a little high. Just go back to the locker room and kick something, kick a bucket or something. You know.
And sometimes players need to do that. Cool
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
And then you can go out and have better conversation. And that's why I've always thought it was weird, like in the Olympics, like the fake gymnastic hugs that I see. Oh, good job, fake hug.
Yeah.
When they're really rooting against each other. It's kind of weird to me. So, I don't know. The Stanley Cup, like we talked about before, it's a grind to get there and accomplish that feat. And the trophy's the best in all of sports. And now they get a chance to celebrate an entire summer. I was at the Rockies game a couple of years ago after the Avalanche won the Cup. And the part of the team brought it out on the field at Coors. And it was awesome, man. That trophy with the sun shining down on top of it. And then they went up in some suite there at Coors Field and got to hang out with the cup and drink beers. And I thought,
you know, Chad, there's no
Great time.
tradition with a trophy like there is with a cup where every player and the front office people, all the coaches, they hand them the trophy, they hold it above their head, they skate if they're on skates. Otherwise, they stand there and hold it. People take that picture. That picture is theirs for life. It is so meaningful to hockey people. I just love that. There's nothing in baseball. You don't touch. You don't get to hold it up like that. It's a great thing. Better than the handshakes.
LeBron and I did not talk about the Lakers job until Thursday afternoon, about 30 minutes after I was offered the job.
Oh.
He just said they didn't talk about the Lakers job until Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
LeBron and I did not talk about the Lakers job until Thursday afternoon, about 30 minutes after I was offered the job.
In reality, it's like LeBron saying, okay, JJ, now here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay? Write this down if you need to.
Just don't insult our intelligence, man. Come on. It's nonsense. I do credit Clutch. They are relentless in their effort to write the narrative for LeBron and make sure that we never forget how great of a player he is.
Yeah, well, you can't forget either that Clutch Sports really is LeBron.
Yeah.
It is him. He's just bankrolling his childhood buddies to have a job.
And that's why they go out of their way to take care of him.
Yeah, it's payback.
I wish I had a Clutch agency behind me. They could polish me up just a little bit, Godfather. All right, we'll come back, and when we do, Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com. What is the most important thing that the Blazers need to accomplish this summer? We'll find out next. Well, it's a great time to have this guy on. The draft is coming up tomorrow. We'll kick off at 5 o'clock. Our coverage will start at 3. He is the man behind BlazersEdge.com, and he joins us once again. It's Dave Deckard. Dave, good afternoon, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Good to hear from you guys. It's going to be an interesting day tomorrow, if not exciting.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Let's start with this, Dave. What would be the best possible result for Portland in the draft tomorrow?
Oh, clearly trading out. I mean, as our draft expert, Steve Wald, is fond of saying, this draft features a bunch of players who are low ceiling and low floor. And anybody who's not is just banking on potential, being about 2 years away from being 2 years away. So there's nobody in this draft that is worth spending a very high pick on. And if the Blazers could translate those picks into future assets or a present player, they'd be better off. The problem is nearly everybody in the league is thinking the same thing, so it's going to be awfully hard to swing that deal.
Dave, is there a player in this draft that you would like to see in a Portland uniform?
I mean, there are 3 that are getting a lot of upward press right now. The big one is Zachary Rizake, who is projected to go number 1 or number 2, simply on the basis that he's had a really good season and he's a 6'8" wing, plays a really good position, has a lot of skills. So, I mean, he's a prime guy. The other 2 guys I'm hearing a lot about are Stefan Castle, who's rumored to be going to the Spurs. He's a good defender, 6'6", probably a shooting guard. And Donovan Clingan, 7'2" center from Connecticut. Any of those would be kind of interesting gets for their upside and maybe their physical potential, but all 3 are projected to be gone before the Blazers pick first, let alone second.
Hey, Dave, you mentioned Portland trading out being the best result for tomorrow's draft. What is the best pathway for them to move forward and acquire assets or more assets in next year's draft?
Well, that's going to be trickier because next year's draft is probably 5 or 6 deep with impact players. It's the opposite of this one. So teams are going to be guarding that very jealously. And I don't think there's any way you turn this year's draft picks into next year's draft picks. But, I mean, Jeremy Grant is sitting there and there's interest in him. I don't know if there's interest in Anthony Simons, but that's a possibility as well. Those are probably your 2 best bets. DeAndre Ayton, too, if someone wants to take a flyer on him. The problem is then the teams you trade them to would have to end up in the lottery next year, which is not at all guaranteed. But if the Blazers are going to make a move for another pick next year, they've got to trade an established veteran with some talent right now in order to get that done.
You know, obviously they have problems with guaranteed contracts, being close to the tax line, all that stuff, Dave. I think it's fair to say there are veterans who are going to be traded. Who do you think the most likely is? What makes the most sense for this team moving forward, given the plan, the tentative plan for next season is probably not to win very many games? What do you think they're going to do?
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, let's not demonize them. They had to re-sign these players, first of all, because Damian Lillard was here up until a year ago. And second of all, because otherwise they would have lost those assets for nothing. And they couldn't do that, so there's justification, certainly for the Simons contract, which is not bad at all. Trading for DeAndre Ayton, completely understandable, and even signing that Jeremy Grant extension can be justified. They did the right thing. But the reality is that none of those contracts are going to bear fruit soon enough to justify keeping these players. So you got to move at least one of them, I would think. And to me, Grant is the most likely because of his talent, because of his attractiveness to other teams, and because of his age. And I just think that if anybody's going to get moved right now, he's the most likely candidate. I would put Ayton at a distant second, but I don't think it's impossible. Depending on how the Blazers assess him, he's really mercurial. He's hard to factor in and understand. And if they don't like his potential, his contract is coming up pretty soon. They might decide to move him this year rather than next summer. those are the two on my radar. After that, the cupboard gets a little bit bare. It's hard to imagine them trading any young players to get different young players. And Anthony Simons probably won't draw enough interest, I'm thinking, in order to get a good enough asset. So, it's the two front court guys, I think, that are the most likely.
Okay, what do you think the market would be for a guy like Grant, Dave? I'm kind of curious about that. And then you haven't mentioned Brogdon, and I was curious about what you think they could get for him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon is almost certainly gone.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that at this point that they can get much for him. I mean, look, can they get a first-round pick? Sure. But is the team going to give up a potential lottery pick for him? No. Yeah. And this is the problem even with trading Grant, because if you look at, for instance, trading him to the Dallas Mavericks, who would probably covet him. It's possible that Denver would too. But, neither one of those teams is going to end up in the lottery. And unless they've got other teams' picks already, you'd have to work in a 3-team deal where somehow they sent assets to pry away that pick for Portland. That gets more complicated, especially when you're talking about very soon-to-come lottery picks. So it's a tough needle to thread. However, I do think that they can get young players for Grant without a problem. And I think that they can probably get future picks for Grant without a problem. I just don't think they can. I'm not sure they can get a lottery pick next year for Grant.
Yeah. We're talking with Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com here on the Rip City Drive. With Anthony Simons, would you have pause about moving him now because they really don't know what they have yet in Scoot and Shaden because they don't have the data because they haven't played that much?
I mean, yes, that makes sense. But if they're trading him, we're presuming that the Blazers have already assessed that they're not going to make use of him or he's not going to carry them beyond his current contract. So if he's on the market, you can presume that it's okay that he's on the market because they have determined that they're going to move him. Whether I do that blind, I'm not really sure for the exact reason you mentioned. And Simons is a really good offensive player. In fact, I don't think he got to show everything he was even last year. So, I mean, he is a valuable asset. But the problem is he valuable enough to turn around this team before his contract ends in a couple years? And the answer to that is going to be no. Is he valuable enough to then turn around and spend maybe $40 million on his prime contract? The answer to that is probably still no. So at that point, you might think about moving him for those reasons. And if the Blazers move him, I won't blink at all or object.
Dave, I want to shift over just for a moment to the coaching situation. I think people understand the contract situation with Billups. He's got one more year guaranteed and then the team option on a year after. It appears they have not guaranteed that team option, but it also appears they want to tank again next year. And I'm not sure he's totally on board with that from what he said after last season. What do you think's going to happen there? Do you expect him to be back all season long here in Portland?
Well, it's tough to predict a mid-season firing for a coach. I think they're going to start the season with him. And I don't think there's any way, if there's any sanity left anywhere, that they offer him that final year that is the team option, which leaves him as a lame duck. And they got a former head coach as an assistant behind him who was once highly regarded in Europe. And it feels like they're priming the pump for the next guy to come in. I think you're right that this is kind of not a wasted year, but this is another experimental year. And they're clearly communicating to him and to everyone that they're going to ride it out and then make a move. Now, as you said, does Coach Billups agree with that? He's probably both looking over his shoulder and somewhat insulted by it. And no surprise there. The question of whether he's here in a year or what his situation will be may depend on him. Whether he mails it in or tells them, to go to where, and just kind of objects to the whole situation, or whether he plays it out and then kind of quietly moves on. There's some incentive to keep it friendly because that helps for later jobs, but it certainly doesn't look good for Coach Billups or his mental health being here. And it certainly doesn't look good for the Blazers either. So it's kind of an odd situation.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, can you give a synopsis for Blazer fans on the order of business, things that they need to take care of this year? They got 14 players on the roster. Obviously, salaries are concerned. Like, what are some things they need to accomplish?
Well, I mean, Dwight hit on it there, the first one. They need to make sure that they're under the luxury tax, and they have till the end of the year to do that. So they could either make trades in the summer or they could do it at the trade deadline. They're right on the border of the luxury tax right now. So their priority is not going to be signing people for sure, because they don't want to push that farther over the line. And their priority is not necessarily going to be this draft once it's done, because there's nobody available. So what their big move is going to be is, what's the next step to cutting some salary and getting some future promise in here? And again, look at Jeremy Grant as the key to that. So I would guess that is their number one priority, rather. Number two, then, is just developing those young players. They've got to get healthy. They've got to see what they've got in Scoot, Shaden Sharp, et cetera, et cetera. Those are overwhelmingly what they're going to do this year. I don't expect much more from them, because I just don't think that more moves or more success is possible right now.
Would you be surprised if they selected a player at 7 and 14?
I wouldn't be surprised, because it probably meant they couldn't move the pick. But I would be surprised if both those players ended up being significant. And at that point, you're just rolling the dice on the best player available. I mean, do you get a Cody Williams from Colorado, who might be a nice small forward who can play a heady game and maybe defend a little and score in sneaky ways? And does he end up being your backup small forward or power forward, really, in a small game? If they get some minutes off the bench from him 3 years down the road and he's a significant part of their bench core or the fifth starter, I think they did all right. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. We're not looking at anything that's going to change the team. We're not looking at any player that's going to come in and really be able to start probably even automatically. So, look, if they use both of them and they get anything out of those players, I think they've done well.
All right, Dave Deckard, the man behind BlazersEdge.com here on the Rip City Drive. Draft coming up tomorrow. We'll kick off at 5. Dave, anything else on your mind before we let you go?
No, I mean, basically prove me wrong, Blazers. I mean, find the guy. There's probably a guy out there somewhere who is going to way exceed expectations. They have to hope they know who that is and that they land on him.
All right. We appreciate the time, buddy. We'll catch up soon, and I'm glad you're well.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, there you go. And Godfather, you've talked about this before. How does this work now? So you scout and you work as a staff year-round, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So are there guys on Cronin's staff, they're all beating the drum for a particular player? Cronin is gathering information leading up to this time, the draft tomorrow, and do they want to be on the same page? Does it want to be a consensus among the staff? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Cronin's got to make the call, but how does that work? How does that process play
No,
out?
I think ideally, yeah, you want all your people on the same. And now it doesn't always happen that everybody's on the same page. But what you want to do, you've already probably a month ago decided who your top 2 or 3 or 4 guys are in this draft. And then, in fact, months ago you did that, because what you want to do, most teams have this philosophy. You want every scout you have to see the guy you're going to pick multiple times. So you don't know who that guy is, so you have him see the top 2, 3, 4 players. Then you begin all your investigative work. You do your background checks. You call teachers, coaches, everybody who might have known them just to find out. You even do the, police blotter reports and find out if there's anything in their past that you don't know about. They're getting very good now at these background checks to find out about players. And that's good. That's what you should do. And so then you get together and you sit around the big table and talk about it. And you use the whiteboard. You put up everything, pro and con. You put up your roster. Where does he fit on your roster? Is there a problem? Is he better for you to draft and trade? Does he have more value to another team who might want him? You do your due diligence on who wants whom in the draft. You know certain teams need a certain position. So you say, you know what? Teams drafting right behind us need that point guard. We'll take the point guard. We'll ship it to them and make some kind of deal with them, whatever. But you have to touch all the bases, Chad. You have to figure out all the things you could do with that pick. Does it have more value just trading it out? And Dave said right off the bat, trade out of it. And I think there are a lot of people thinking about that. The problem is they're stuck in this area where I've been told nobody's going to give up a possible lottery pick for this next draft. There's too many good players in it. That's too dicey to give up. Now, so what you do is you go to the next level team. Like Dave mentioned, Dallas. Okay, they got a late pick, a terrible pick in the first round. But I don't think you'd want that. But you go to the Lakers, well, nobody knows. They think they're going to be a playoff team. They think they're going to be in the top 6 probably. Who knows? But that's worth taking a first-round pick from them because it could end up in the lottery again. So you just don't know. You got to take a flyer at that point if you're really interested in that. And that's what teams in this situation do. You got to bring all your ammunition to bear to get as many picks in next year's draft as you can, because that's what OKC has done. San Antonio has done that. Accumulate picks. They have value. You can trade them away later. You can use them on a good player if he pops up in your way. That's what you have to do.
Oh, speaking of the Lakers, you and I have a wager on a dinner at El Gaucho on the win total for the Lakers next year. 47 is the number. So if they hit 48, then I have to buy you dinner. If they go below 47, then you have to buy me dinner.
JJ Redick, my man.
I'm going to be really ticked off if there's some stupid team out there, because the Lakers right now, they're going to go out, big game hunting. They're going to look for a big name.
They always do.
Dejounte Murray or Trae Young or whoever the guy is.
They're going to get their big 3.
If some team hand wraps a big-time player to them, I'm going to be super bitter.
Is there one that you're seeing out there that's likely?
No, not in terms of the big name, but I just hope that a team – they always seem to find a team willing to do deals with them, and the Lakers will be willing to sacrifice, future picks to be able to do that. So we'll have to wait and see. I know Jeremy Grant's been linked to the Lakers. I wouldn't deem that a big-name move, but Grant obviously would be very helpful for a player like that.
Yeah.
Would Cronin do a deal with the Lakers?
Boy, you'd have to get an awful lot back to do that. You would. Yeah.
That seems like a hard sell in this town to go out and do a deal with the Lakers.
They're most often linked to Trae Young. What would you think of them getting Trae Young?
Who, the Lakers?
Yeah.
Well, I think he doesn't defend.
Yeah.
So if they get Trae Young, I'll feel very good about my situation with you and the wager on El Gaucho.
With JJ coaching him, I tell you, the guy will probably he would set a league record for most 3-point attempts, because that's what JJ's going to want.
All right, we'll come back, and we're going to react to some of the items that Dave talked about. Chris Burkhart will jump in on the conversation. Surely Atlanta wouldn't give up Dejounte Murray, would they? He's too good.
Don't call me Shirley. I've heard no, they don't want to give him up. That would be dumb. That would be dumb. But they are dum-dums down there, I think.
I'm glad Peter Vesey put out that tweet. Carly Simon turns 81 years old today.
Wow.
Do you think she's still interested in dating at 81? I'd love to spend time with her. I've been in love with Carly Simon for like 3 decades. She's amazing.
She's going to place a call to Bill Belichick for some tips.
If Belichick can score the 24-year-old cheerleader, I might be able to hang out with Carly Simon for a little bit. It's possible.
I don't know if you're vain enough for her.
I'll be whatever she wants me to be. Carly, you just tell me whatever you want. I'm that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back and react to Dave Deckard, who joined us. Aaron Fentress is going to stop by at 5:20 here on the Rip City Drive. All right, Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com, joined us on the show. Aaron Fentress, Oregonian, coming up today at 5:20, and we got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops that we'll give away at 5 o'clock. Dwight, what'd you think about Deckard's idea of just trading out of the draft?
Well, I think it's something to be considered, and I'm sure they have considered it. It's just a matter of what you get for that. You know, you got to get something tangible for that. You do need low-cost players, and you get those in the draft. So if you think there's somebody there who could, and this goes back to, you know, you got to be thinking 2 or 3 years ahead now. If you see a guy that you think in 2 years might be a part of your future, then I think you have to look toward that. I think you have to think about that. But if there's nobody there that you see as a long-term part of your team, why bother?
Hey, Burkhart, what was the biggest thing that jumped out at you in terms of what Dave had to say?
Yeah, I think it was interesting that was his take, was getting out of the draft almost altogether. I don't think that's anything that the three of us have really thought about or talked about, or a lot of fans that I've talked to have thought about. And I get where the idea is there, but at the same time, I think if you're going to go full-on rebuild, which is what we've been sold, right, then I think you have to use those draft picks. I mean, you're not always drafting a star. I mean, if you were, everyone would just be draft happy all the time because they're drafting their next starting guy. But sometimes the depth play and the guys you take a risk on, you got to do it. You got to risk it for the biscuit, as they say.
And there's great value in those rookie scale contracts.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you're going to get players that aren't going to hurt you cap-wise. And you got to get rid of those high contracts that you have anyway, and you might not get a lot back for them. Who knows what you're going to get back? But if you got a chance to take a possibility of a kid being a player, yeah, go ahead. At that price, I say go ahead and take the gamble on that. And if you're not looking to win a lot of games next year, you can go ahead and develop that guy. You can play that person. And that's usually the downside to playing your rookies. It's going to cost you some games. Next year?
And according to Real GM, too, I mean, that 7th pick right now is roughly, a 3-year, $15-16 million deal, $5.7 million in that first year. And the 14th pick is coming in at $3.7 million that first year, going up to just over $4 million in year 3. So, again, the value of that low money spot that you fill on that roster, as Dwight's alluding to.
Well, if they do end up taking 2 players, one is 7 and one is 14, then, I mean, just like it was last year, Godfather, developing talent, developing your young players is going to continue to be a point of emphasis.
Well, that's the other thing I like about unloading some veterans is you do get to play these young players, and I think that's the ultimate developmental tool, is to get them in the lineup and let them play some real games. Forget Summer League and all this other stuff. Let them play NBA games. And now, you're going to lose, but they're going to gain experience they otherwise wouldn't gain.
How much do people care around the league about having some veterans around to keep some continuity and leadership around the youngsters?
Well, it sounds nice, and it does sound good, but very often players aren't as accepting in that role as you might expect. And a lot of players, veteran players, are looking to go somewhere where they can grab that ring, they can tailgate off other players and win that ring they've always wanted to win, and they don't want to come to teams that are just in the bottom of the barrel. It's not fun for a veteran player. They won't say that. It's like Brogdon last year. Good soldier. He was a good soldier.
He really
came
was.
here. He did what he was supposed to do. But don't mistake that for thinking that this was the most enjoyable season he's ever spent in the NBA.
No, it was miserable. First, if you go from a team where you're used to winning, and then you go to a team that's a bottom dweller, that's developing, like, that's tough for a guy.
All he had to do was stay one more year in Boston. He's got a ring.
Same thing with Robert Williams.
Yeah, they missed it.
Yeah, it sucks. Sucks for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, when you're paid many millions of dollars.
Yeah, I know. But it's kind of funny when you're in the middle of it like that. You know, you're still going to have your feelings. You're still going to, you could be happier somewhere else.
Well,
that way.
If you talk to athletes or athletes who have been in a particular sport over the period of, many years, veterans, guys who have played, football, basketball, whatever the case may be, for an extended period of time, as time goes on, they look back and appreciate those moments where they were in the right culture, winning, had the right team around them. You don't realize it at the time, but you look back, you're like, man, that was an enjoyable experience.
Everybody wants their job to be fun. You know?
Yeah. And
We all do.
priorities change, for players when they're young, it's about getting that second contract. But as time goes on, you got some money in the bank, and you start to, develop different ideas about what's important to you. You still want to get paid, but, you start to look at situation, coaching, where are we going to be living? What's the culture like there? You reach out and talk to other players and stuff like that. So you're right. Brogdon and Robert Williams missed out.
I'll tell you, too, this league, you're playing 82 games with a lot of travel. Losing on top of that makes for a really, really tough grind.
Because it's always possible, too, that if Boston doesn't make the moves that they made, which allowed them to land Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, they might not win the title. That's
I don't
quite
think
possible.
they would have.
Yeah.
Those are two guys who are pretty important to them. Yeah.
Robert Williams is a great player. Love his game. It's just, like a lot of guys, health has always been the concern for him.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the weird part? What is the biggest issue? Oh, we uncovered it before the show. I always forget this, but with Ayton, I like Ayton. I like watching him play.
Sure.
Great skill set, young, athletic. The big question I hear from you and from many other people is, he was great last year when he was the number one option. What will he be for the Trailblazers when he's the third option?
Right. That's the real question.
Yeah.
Because when you get more talent, he won't be a 1 or 2 option on your team. And that's kind of the modern center's plight in the NBA nowadays. Not many of them are the number one option. And you're going to have to adjust to that. He had trouble adjusting to that in Phoenix.
All right, we'll come back on the Rip City Drive, and when we do, we'll take a look at the NFL. ESPN's got their rankings out, 1 through 32, best rosters in the NFL. And then Pro Football Talk has got their power rankings, so we'll kind of do an overlay to see how the rosters match up with the power rankings as we get ready for a brand new football season, which is quickly approaching. It's going to be awesome. You got the Rip City Drive. Aaron Fentress, Oregonian, at 5:20. Hops Ticket Tuesday. We'll give away a 4-pack to sit in the Rip City Radio Row coming up at 5. Hey, what up? Chad here, 4 o'clock, NBA Draft tomorrow. It's at 5. Our coverage will start at 3. Rip City Drive live from Moda Center for the Trailblazers draft party. Travis Demers and Francis Williams will anchor the Blazers coverage on 620 Rip City Radio starting at 4:30, part of Blazers broadcasting. And that will go throughout the evening until Joe Cronin's presser. Aaron Fentress is going to stop by the show today at 5:20. Elsewhere, OG Anunoby has opted out of his deal with the Knickerbockers and will enter free agency, passing on an option year worth $19.9 million. On the diamond, Vladimir Guerrero has softened his stance, would be open to joining the Yankees if the Jays make a move. Toronto right now last place in the AL East. Luis Castillo is on the bump for the M's. Things are just underway. Game 2 against the Rays. Seattle has dropped 5 of their last 6. They're leading the AL West now 5.5 games. Houston on fire. They've won 5 straight. I found your pretzel stash, so I helped myself to the Schneider's Jalapeno Ranch. I took some over and dropped off a big load for Chris Burkhardt. You're eating them now. Those things are absolute money. And Burkhardt, his family and their work at the original steer meat market here in town.
Yeah.
And I love his dad's last name is Butcher, too, which is truly amazing.
Crazy stuff.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's crazy town right there. Like Joe Fan when he's like, dude, my last name is Fan. It's like, come on, man. You're a sports writer and your last name is Fan. But he brings in every once in a while beef jerky that's made out there at the steer. And he brought in a pack last week. It is by far the ultimate number one in terms of beef jerky I've ever had in my life.
Yeah,
and I just asked him about the process. They cure it overnight. They go through an entire smoking process, and it's not some type of skimpy strips of meat. It's unbelievable. Have you had it before?
Oh, yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. It's very good. I'm just a little I'm a little leery of the jerky because I'm worried about maybe yanking a tooth out while I'm trying to pull that off.
Oh, that's part of the fun, man.
Yeah.
What was I eating that one time when one of my crowns popped off? Oh, ginger chews. My friend Julia, my lovely old lady friend Julia, who gives my facials and everything. She's awesome, but she's very much into health food and all these different things. So every time I go over to visit her, she's got like ginger chews. And I was chewing on one of those once, and all of a sudden I was like, oh no, what is that? Freaking crown popped off right into my pie hole. And luckily I just spit it out, looked at it, did not damage it whatsoever. I was able to get in the next day, and the dentist was able to glue it back on.
Oh, wow.
Save me some bucks right there. I got gold crowns too. Not
Do
cheap.
ya?
Yeah.
How many of those you have?
2. Yeah, and if I felt like it would improve my street cred, Godfather. But no, I'm very much when it comes to anything, like when it comes to a car, like I want the best made vehicle that will last for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked the dentist about, well, what are the different type of options for crowns? He's like, well, we got this. It looks like more like this. We got the gold. I want durability. Well, if I'm going to pay for it, what's going to last the longest? That's the gold. More durable.
You going to have an open casket when you die?
You can have my teeth.
I
if
was
you
going
want
to
them.
say I could bring a.
I am worth more dead than alive. I can assure you of that.
I'm going to bring my pliers.
Do so. You should.
Yeah.
You could sell them. You could pop it in a jar.
Hey, you can't take them with you.
No.
You know how that works.
What good are they going to do me?
Yeah, exactly.
But seriously, Burkhardt, will you tell your dad, just pass the message along to him and say that I love him. Just say Chad loves you. He appreciates your work at the original steer, and the beef jerky's money. It is the best.
Noted. I will make sure he knows.
I love the beef jerky, man, especially after a workout, like the protein boost. It's good for me. I feel it. Love it.
I grew up with it. I was pampered. I just thought everyone grew up having bags of jerky and steak every night. I did not realize that until I got older, that I was pampered.
Dude, we need what a luxury it is to have a freaking meat market in the family. You can just swing by and pick up a steak or whatever.
Oh, man.
Beef jerky. Isn't that genius?
Oh, it's got to be the best.
Thanksgiving time, swing by and pick up a turkey.
Yeah. And I bet, Chris has probably never had anything less than just absolute prime steaks, beef. They're not eating the cheap stuff at home.
Well, it's all good stuff. I'll tell you that. But I never realized just, again, how good a meat market was. And shout out to all the other local ones, too, not just my dad's, because the local meat markets are phenomenal. But I didn't realize how special a local meat market was till I went to college and I didn't have the original steer in my back pocket. And I had to go buy some bacon from Winco. And I'm like, okay, bacon's bacon, right? No, bacon is not bacon. It is much different from the meat shop than it is, prepackaged at your grocery store. And that was when I really realized, like, yeah, I've been pampered. I've been pampered.
Well, your dad's an animal. We love him and appreciate the beef jerky from the original steer. All right.
He dry mouth. He's just thinking about it. He starts salivating. Now he can't talk.
It's the pretzels.
The pretzels and the beef jerky together get me all tore up inside. Those pretzels are amazing.
Yeah.
I could eat them all day. I wish I wouldn't have discovered your stash because now I want to come across the table mid-show and just start eating more pretzels.
These are amazing.
All right. We've got two different things to look at. ESPN's got their list of they rank the rosters in the NFL. So they went 1 through 32. And then what I did is I took a look at Pro Football Talk. They've got their power rankings out. So I was just curious how that might match up. But here are your top 5 teams, according to ESPN, in terms of the best rosters in the NFL. The names, not a surprise. I think everyone knows who the number 1 team is in terms of roster. My choice at number 2 would have been Detroit, but I was wrong. San Francisco, 49ers at 1. Kansas City at 2. Baltimore at 3. Detroit is at 5. The only real surprise there, the Jets rank number 4 on the list for ESPN for best rosters. But they have done a lot of work. They put in some time trying to construct a team around Aaron Rodgers. The rest of the teams 6 through 10, Dallas, Cincy, Houston, Buffalo, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And then here are the bottom 5, Godfather: New England, Arizona, Carolina, Washington, Denver, and then the New York Giants come in last. Now, 2 teams I was curious about, the Seattle Seahawks. They are 16th, according to ESPN, in terms of overall roster, and the Chicago Bears at 17. Now, we talked about this during the draft, but not a bad situation for Caleb Williams. He's not going to the worst team in the NFL. This is not Carolina. He's going to a team that has done a pretty good job of selecting some players. They got a couple of playmakers for him now. The offensive line is okay. He's got some pieces to work with here, which should give Williams a chance to get off the ground running, which is nice. Now, the one thing I'm excited about with Seattle, and we know that Geno Smith is not the long-term answer at quarterback, but the people around the league have a tremendous amount of respect for Coach McDonald and the work he did in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And just look at the way that they annihilated San Francisco at the end of the regular season last year. Like his smarts, his game planning, and he's got youthful energy. I'm anxious to see what he does with the Seahawks this year. But what I did is I looked at this list from ESPN, and then I just compared the teams to Pro Football Talk to see what their power rankings prior to the season began were. So San Francisco checked in at number 2 on the power rankings. Kansas City's 1. Baltimore 4. ESPN's got the Jets with the 4th best roster. Pro Football Talk's got them as the 25th best team going into the season.
That's ridiculous. 21 spots different.
Yeah. Detroit, they have the 5th best roster according to ESPN, and they're 3rd in the power rankings for Pro Football Talk. And I would say with the Jets, look, I believe I have 2 question marks about the Jets. Not their roster. I think their roster is fine. But the health of Aaron Rodgers obviously is a number 1. If he's healthy and can play and is able to get through the entire season healthy, they're going to be fine because Aaron Rodgers is freaking awesome. The other question mark I have aside from Aaron's health is their coach.
Of course. Not only the head coach, but the coordinator, right?
Yes. Well, he's kind of on Aaron's leash, so it's like
Aaron's really the offensive coordinator.
Aaron's the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But Coach Sala, he might be dumb. And I know this because of the comments he made recently about Aaron Rodgers being absent or tardy or whatever word he used, but then the next day he's like, we're on the same page. Inexcused. He didn't even use proper English.
Right. Inexcused absent.
Not unexcused, but inexcused.
Yeah.
Well, that was inexcusable that you said that about your quarterback. So, I don't know. It's interesting to me. Chicago, They were 17 on ESPN's list for best roster, 17 in Pro Football Talk's power rankings. The Seahawks 21st in power rankings, 16th best roster. And then most of the teams at the bottom of the pack. Arizona 30th in the power rankings. Carolina 29th best roster, 32nd in the power rankings, worst team. Washington 29 in the power rankings, 30th best roster. Denver near the bottom of the pack in roster at 31, but they were 22 in the Pro Football Talk power rankings.
Wow.
And then the Giants check in 32 in roster, 28 in the power rankings. Now, the Denver stuff doesn't surprise me, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Bronco fan. Their offensive line rated top 10 last year, which is important when you got a young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a number one receiver in Cortland Sutton. They've made some vast improvements to the defense, especially at the line with the run defense. If Bo Nix can play and is anywhere what Sean Payton believes he is, Denver's not going to be awful. They won't be miserable.
Yeah, and I think when you look at a power ranking compared to a roster ranking, there's also the coach factor measured in there too.
Yeah.
I think you can take Sean Payton and he can take a worse roster and win games with him.
There's no question about it.
And I see that in what they're saying about the Jets. It totally reflects, I think, what you say. Yeah, they got a great roster. We just don't think Saleh's going to be able to coach these guys well enough to get a lot of wins.
One thing I do like with the Broncos, I saw this number today for training camp that's coming up. You know, every team will offer open practices, and that's where they allow fans to come in. You can get tickets. You can sit in the bleachers and watch the team practice there at training camp, which is a lot of fun. Well, Baltimore's going to have 20, Kansas City 19, Denver's now third with 16 open practices, meaning 16 dates on the training camp schedule. They're going to have open practices. And I think that's just a good example of the demand in Denver for fans who want to go and check out training camp because they got Bo Nix and people want to see how Nix is looking, the excitement around having a young quarterback. You know, fans are excited about that. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Whenever anybody talks about open practice with me, Chad, regardless of the sport, I always think it also reflects the confidence the coach has in what he's doing with his players and his staff. He's not ashamed to let you see what they're doing. Coaches that aren't confident, maybe guys in their first year of being a head coach at a place, they don't want a lot of witnesses to what's going on because it might not look so good early.
Well, don't you think, too, that, I mean, it's just human nature, right? If you open up your practices to fans and you've got, 2,000, 3,000 people sitting there watching practice, aren't the players going to play harder, practice harder?
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't want to embarrass themselves in front of the people.
Yeah, Jack Ramsey used to invite people into Blazer practices at the Jewish Community Center, the Middleman Jewish Community Center. They would pull the bleachers down so that members of the club could come in and watch practice. And I said, I understand letting the media in, of course, but I don't get the fans. He said, these guys play a lot harder when there's people watching. Yeah, makes sense.
Oh, speaking of practice, I did hear that the Blazers training camp is going to be in town this year. So they're not going to head down to...
Oh, they're not going to Palm Springs?
No, I think it was...
Santa Barbara last year?
Santa Barbara. The last couple of years they've been down there.
Yeah.
I think I've decided that if I had the money, like Santa Barbara, that's about as good as it gets, right? In terms of prime real estate, weather, and just...
Yeah.
It doesn't suck there. Let's just put it that way.
That's where my wife went to undergraduate.
Of course she did.
Yes.
A lot of beautiful people down in Santa Barbara, too, Godfather.
That's what I hear, yeah. She never got out of the sun the whole time she was in school.
Hey, were you ever in love with Carly Simon?
I loved Carly Simon. Yeah, everybody did, right? Beautiful, but the way she sang was angelic, I think. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can always tell my dad, he's never said anything around me to disrespect my mom, but he will always make a little comment where I'm like, oh, okay, he thinks that she's hot, He said that about Jacqueline Smith. Used to be a Charlie's Angel.
Sure, yeah.
He would make little comments about, oh, yeah, she's really good. And I was like, okay, he thinks she's hot. And then he has mentioned a couple things about Carly, like, oh, I really like her music. Yeah, I'm sure you do. That's good. I can always tell that. But I like Carly. Who were some of your favorite female artists when you were younger, in your younger days?
Cher, I think. Yeah.
Do you remember watching the Sonny and Cher show?
Sure. Yeah. It's pretty good, too.
Oh, it's really good. Good writing. It was funny.
They had good guests, good comics on there. That was absolutely good.
I thought Cher presented herself really well on that show. I catch reruns on that on one of those stations that I have hooked up in my room. I can't remember, but it's good. I like
The
that show.
stations are directly connected to the 1960s.
But I liked the variety shows back then were actually pretty solid.
Yeah.
Hee Haw, Sonny and Cher. I love Carol Burnett.
Oh, yeah.
Terrific show.
Very good show. Did you ever
They would
watch,
break character and cause each other to crack up all the time.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Ed Sullivan show?
Yeah. There's reruns of that showing too, and they got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff on Ed
Steve
Sullivan.
Allen. Did they ever show Steve Allen?
I have not seen that.
Yeah. Late night and opposite of Ed Sullivan for a while. Really funny.
I do think that I've made it through. I've seen just about every episode of Carson now. I've been making an effort.
Wow.
I
That's
watch,
a lot of episodes.
I watch a lot of Carson. Anything that I've been able to get my hands on, I watch it. So now I know who my favorite guests are, and my favorite guests in no particular order: Robin Williams, Michael Landon, Rodney Dangerfield, Jimmy Stewart was always classy on that
Yeah.
show.
George Gobel, Dean Martin.
Dean Martin was really good.
Yeah.
I do know I read
Jack
some
Benny. Yeah.
Jack Benny. I did read some stuff. He didn't really like having Bob Hope on. There was a bit of a rivalry there, and NBC was in bed with Bob Hope, and so
Yes.
Hope would always just whenever he wanted to go on Carson, because that was the best way to promote his stuff.
Yeah.
He would just tell them, "Yeah, I want on Carson," and then Carson had to have him on.
Yeah, and then he would kind of try to hijack the show.
Yeah.
He would try to kind of take over a little bit.
I don't think Carson liked that.
No.
But Bob Hope was the one guy that he couldn't say no to.
Yeah. Yeah, they did all those tours. He always went to the troops, and they showed those.
Yeah, just little details you pick up on when you get stuck in YouTube. And you're like, oh, let me do a little research on that. I watched some documentary on Carson. Fascinating. I like Ed McMahon, too.
Carson was not a happy man, it seemed.
Like a lot of geniuses,
Yeah.
very successful people are,
Tormented.
tormented. All right, Godfather, we've been talking about food. I got to tell you what I did last night. I was in one of those lazy modes because I was busy once again driving children all over town. That's the way summertime's going to go for me. And last night, my daughter decided at the last moment that she wanted to go out and spend the night at a friend's house. So I ran over to her friend's house. And I always feel weird, like just dropping my kid off without going up to the door to say hi to the parents. You know, like I think that's weird. So I went in and I took some time to go say hi to the parents. And then when I got home, I was like, I don't feel like fixing dinner. So I actually went old school last night. I took 2 pieces of wheat toast, tablespoon of jelly on one side, tablespoon of peanut butter on the other side, made a toasted peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I got to be honest with you, it was awesome. Absolutely awesome. It was great.
How much jelly and what kind of peanut butter? These are big questions.
Raspberry.
How
jelly,
much?
A tablespoon.
Just a
tablespoon.
Just a tablespoon?
Yeah, because I got to
don't know
control
if
the
that's-
caloric intake.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough.
50 calories for a tablespoon of jelly, 100 calories for a tablespoon of peanut butter,
Crunchy or
110
smooth?
calories in each slice of bread. Oh, crunchy. Yeah, I don't do smooth.
Same here.
I'm an adult, Godfather.
Same here. You got to have the crunch.
Yeah, it was delicious.
Yeah.
Why do we get away from certain things? We like naps. I was forced to take it when I was younger, revolted against that, and now I wish I could take naps every day because they're genius. But peanut butter and jelly, it was just a delicious treat. I had not had that in a long time.
It was good in the 5th grade, and it's still good now, I got to tell you.
Like, how do people come up with these ideas? Like, hey, let's put peanut butter and jelly together. Like, who came up with the concept?
I don't know. There used to be a little food truck up on 23rd.
I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're
23rd.
talking about. Yeah.
And they had all kinds of peanut butter and all kinds of jelly, all kinds of bread, and you could get your peanut butter jelly sandwich just about any way you wanted it.
I wonder, like, some of these concepts, is it by mistake? Like, did they discover peanut butter and jelly by mistake? Like, who was the first dude or whoever it was, lady, that came up with popcorn? Did it happen accidentally? Like, the corn just popped and they
Probably
ate it?
did, yeah. It got, somebody threw a few kernels in the fire.
And it popped,
Yeah.
and they
it's like,
tried it.
that tastes pretty good.
All right. Okay, let's talk about this. With the Trailblazers, we want to take a different route because everyone is sharing ideas about what they want Portland to do with the draft tomorrow and then free agency right around the corner. But you came up with a good idea. Why don't we focus on what they shouldn't do, what they should not do this offseason, right?
That's just as important as the things that they're going to try to do.
Okay. Well, I think if we're going to list off what they shouldn't do, I think it's important once again to state the goal and what we believe the goal is. And what I believe the goal is right now is, and if I'm wrong, correct me, and Burkhart, you can jump in on this. I don't think the plan is to win right now. I don't think the plan is to win in 24-25. I don't think that's the focus. I don't think that's the mission. I think what they're focused on is they're in this process of rebuild. And they haven't come out of the woods yet in terms of the rebuild because they need more young assets. Next year's draft is loaded. Dave Deckard said it. It goes 5 or 6 deep of top-notch players that would all go ahead of any player in this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what your crown jewel is, next year's draft, to complete this process of retooling the entire franchise. They chose a direction when they decided to move away from Dame, and they wanted to go young and rebuild. And I'm here for it. But what I don't want, and what I don't think is good for any franchise, is to start the process, but for whatever reason, pressure, or you don't have the stomach for it, or people lack patience, you steer away from what you need to do. So I think their process is continuing to rebuild. I think the culmination of that will hopefully be with the draft next year. Would you agree with that assessment? Is
Yeah,
that
of
what
course.
their focus is right now?
Yeah, I would even say it a little harsher than you did. I would say the focus is on losing next year and losing big. I'm sorry that fans have to hear that, but they haven't really. I mean, look what they did last year. They acquired a bunch of veterans. They end up with a 7th pick, and they could have lost more games if they didn't have as many veteran players on the team. I think to get the players they're going to want next year, this is really important. I mean, you got to get out of this lottery thing at some point, and the way you do it is by getting the best possible players in the draft. To do that, you got to have the high picks. It's not a guarantee because it's a lottery. but you got to give yourself a chance. Get as many draft picks as you can. Be as bad this next year as you can because you need those picks. That's just what you have to do. You got to clear space for these guys. You got to be ready to develop them, but you want a bunch of good young players you can build your future with. They don't have enough of them right now.
Okay, so this would be an example of what not to do. I got this message today. Brian Bergman, big listener of the show, good friend. He tweeted at me and said, Chad, if the New Orleans Pelicans are going to trade Brandon Ingram, then the Blazers need to do what they can do to get that guy. I would trade Anthony Simons for him, no doubt. Well, I'm not a big fan of Brandon Ingram, and I think his stock around the league has come down just a little bit. But regardless of that, this would be an example of what not to do right now. Yeah. Going out and getting a high-price vet who would help you win games right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need him right now. We have to think, I think, Chad, 2 years ahead. What do you want your team to look like in 2 years? Because this year, this coming year, and probably even the year after, you're not going to be ready to win. You got to think about when is this team going to grow up and be ready to go after some sort of championship.
All right. I want to run some of these ideas by you, and you kind of give me a definition of what it means. You really believe that when it comes to the draft, whether it's this year or next year, don't draft someone who doesn't fit with your long-term plan. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think there's a way. This team has a philosophy, I believe, and I think it has to do with the way it wants to play. How do you want to have a running team? You want to share the ball? You want to be a hero ball team? I don't think you do, because then you need the hero, and they don't have that player on hand and may not ever get one. So you're going to move the ball, good passers, a lot of good three-point shooters, maybe a rim protector. That's the way you want to play. So don't deter from that. Get the guys you think will be pieces for your future team. And if you can't find that guy, just like trade out of the draft or don't go. Just don't bother.
Another idea that you have, and this would apply to Cronin and the rest of the front office, but be bold.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm tired of these sort of halfway tank jobs. You can't have 3 or 4 or 5 veterans on the team that you end up at the halfway point of the league telling them, okay, you got a pulled hamstring, you're not playing the rest of the season. Having to sit these guys out because they're helping you win too many games.
In other words, having two timelines like the Warriors.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't have 2 timelines. You're either all in on the tank or you might as well not even do it. It just doesn't work any other way.
All right. What do you mean by stick to the plan? I guess that's everything that we just discussed, right?
Yes, it is. And it's like, if the plan is to tank, and if you think the draft next year is your target, get as many arrows in your quiver as you can. Accumulate as many picks in that draft next year as you can possibly get your hands on, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that make sense? The more you have, the more chance you have of getting lucky. If I have 1 dart over here to the bullseye, I might hit it. But give me 10 darts, I got a heck of a lot better chance of hitting the bullseye.
All right, this next idea, I think a lot of Blazer fans would feel this way, but you say don't hold on to players in fear of what they might become somewhere else.
Yeah, see, I've believed ever since Jermaine O'Neal was dealt away and turned into an all-star, an Olympian, whatever else.
Did that impact Paul?
Oh, it definitely did. Yeah, because I don't even know that he really wanted to make that deal. That deal was made, without him, and it wasn't really the best thing for the franchise. They got a player back, Dale Davis, who they thought would help them win now, but it didn't work out. So don't worry about what that guy might be. Worry about what you're getting. If you get the guy you want to get, be bold enough and confident enough, that's the guy that's going to help this franchise recover. And that's what you have to do. You got to be bold. You got to make hard decisions. And you can't wait too long to do it, because the longer you wait, the more certain players' values decline. So trade when they're at the highest. And I look at Ayton. Ayton had a great year for this team last year. If you wait another year to deal him, it might be too late. This right now might be the highest value he's going to have.
You also say be confident. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, if you got big decisions to make. The future of this franchise is on the line right now. If you're not confident, hire better people around you, get better scouts, do whatever you can, because to be bold, you have to be confident. There's no way to be bold unless you're an idiot without being confident. To make these kind of moves, these are franchise-altering moves here. Every move you make now is going to have a big impact in the future. So be confident. Make sure you know what you're doing, but then do it. Don't sit around.
All right. Aside from acquiring as many assets in next year's draft, player development continues to be basically
Absolutely.
priority number one, right? And hopefully, based on what you learned about Bjork when talking to some of your guys around the league, and then with the addition of Fleming, those guys, are, along with the rest of the staff, tasked with developing Scoot and Shaden and the rest of the young guys on the roster.
Yeah. And here's the deal. I look back at that Houston team of 2 years ago when they had all those young players they had gotten early in the draft. They played them all. And they had maybe one or two veterans on that team, but they played the young guys. And that team was terrible, quite frankly. And it looked for a while like some of them just weren't going to make it. Jabari Smith is one of those guys. His first year was not pretty. But you know what? His second year was pretty good. And so you play guys and let them work their way through what it takes to win and be good in this league. So next year's the perfect year to do that because you don't want to be good anyway. You don't care, but you want to develop them. So put all your eggs in that basket. You have good young players. You're confident in them. Play them. Let them learn the hard way. Let them get beat up a little bit. They'll come back stronger for it.
The one thing that's weird about this, emphasis on next year's draft, I like Joe Cronin and I like Chauncey Billups, but right now there's a conflict that exists between the two of them. Cronin's focused on the long-term plan, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's his job. Chauncey Billups is focused on being a coach and putting himself in the best position moving forward for his career.
He has a whole career to think about ahead of him.
Yes, and that means he wants to win games. But that is not the priority of the franchise today.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that conflict, they want to go in opposite directions.
And I think it will be painful for both sides to continue down that path. I think this is a good time to say, Chauncey, either we're going to guarantee your final year of the contract or we're going to let you go and pay you for what we have left because we don't want you to have to go through this. We know you don't want to go through it. And we're going to elevate Jim Moran off the G League team. He's a good coach, and he knows all about player development. He's good at that.
And Jim Moran would be all about the plan.
Yes, he would. And with that, you tell Jim Moran, Jim, if you do the good job, if you do the right things here, you're going to be considered. You'll be a finalist for the next coaching job.
We'll give you a little pay bump.
Yeah.
Take care of you.
Yeah. And you'll be able to say you were a head coach of an NBA team for at least one season, probably two. That's what I would do, Chad. I don't think it's fair to Chauncey to ask him to tank one more year. I just don't think that's fair.
But Blazer fans, I really do believe that this is the right plan for them to focus on next year's draft. I really believe that. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that it's nice to finally have a direction and a pathway that they're following, and you got to stick with it now. They're in this deep. You got to see it through. You just have to. It sucks. It's tough. Yeah. And I'm sure it's hard for Cronin and the rest of the front office to embrace that. But, that's the Rockets went through it. Look at the teams that have gone through the mess and look at where they came out of.
Yeah.
With all the good young players.
Yeah, it's a long walk to the end of the rainbow, but the end of the rainbow is there, and you hope the pot of gold is there.
Well, it's not. My dad and I went I'll never forget it.
You actually did it. You chased the rainbow?
We did. We were out on a run. This is when we were living in Colorado, and it was a beautiful, late spring, early summer day, and we're out there for a run, and we saw the rainbow, and my dad's like, let's follow it. So we ran, and we came up to the end of the rainbow, but every time you got close to it, you couldn't run through it. It was an optical illusion. Mm-hmm. And there was no pot of gold. And I just thought that was a trip.
Were you shocked?
No, but it was the first time I'd ever seen the end of a rainbow, but I couldn't touch it. It was bizarre, but really cool. And it was a beautiful day. So it was, the colors as bright as can be right in front of your face, but you couldn't quite. I was hoping I could put my hand on it and then see the colors of the rainbow in my hand, but it didn't work out that way.
It's a little higher in the sky than that, isn't it? I don't know.
No, I'm
like
saying that I came. The
it
end
came
was
right down to the ground.
It was on the road that we were running on,
I've never seen that.
but I couldn't touch it. Every time you got close to it, it would move.
Huh.
That was the only time that I've ever seen the actual end of a rainbow right in front of me. No pot of gold, no nothing. So the Lucky Charms commercials are lying.
Oh,
I'm just
no,
saying.
no,
But I
no, Chad.
But I was young at the time when this went down. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying it was cool to see, but yeah, it's not. It tricks you. It's tricky.
Was it a little elf there or anything?
No elf. No bowl Lucky Charms. No purple horseshoes. Galooly was not there.
Oh, too bad.
I can't believe you got to go on the Today Show to talk about that disaster.
Oh, don't worry. They didn't pay me for it. I got an autographed
You
picture.
didn't get paid?
No.
That's some bull.
I got
man.
an autographed picture
From Katie Couric?
from Katie Couric with, to me directly. Which was, in those days, a pretty good deal.
Did you get to talk to that? Who was the old dude that used to do the weather all the time?
No.
Wilbur, or I can't remember his name.
Yeah, there was a Wilbur sounds right, but it
Who
probably
was that guy?
wasn't Wilbur, but it was a name like that probably.
It was close to that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Aaron Fentress is going to stop by at 5:20. When we come back, King Kwan, Stephen Kwan is blown up, and now people are starting to take notice. And we got more details on the dum-dum that blew the game for the Nationals in Colorado over the weekend. We'll share those with you next. All right, Godfather, we mentioned this story about the outrage surrounding the Nationals and Rockies outcome over the weekend. Colorado recorded a 8-7 win when the Nationals pitcher, Kyle Finnegan, got hammered with a clock violation. He was a couple of seconds late. The bases were loaded in a full count. The winning run got walked home, and the game was over.
Yeah.
And some of the old-timers are like, oh, this rule's got to change. We can't have games end like this. Well, we didn't know this at the time, but further details so far for Finnegan, he leads the majors with 9 pitch clock violations this year.
God.
He has 4 pitch clock violations with the bases loaded since the pitch clock was adopted. I mean, come on.
You talk about, learn from your mistakes. Have you heard of that concept?
Well, that kind of shoots my whole theory. It kind of just destroys it, blasts it away into smithereens, where I was like, hey, ultimate penalty, he'll learn from it, and then you move on. But in some cases, some people never learn.
I think that's your definition of a dum-dum.
I mean, how would a manager, that's definitely dum-dum material.
Yeah.
How does a manager deal with this with the new rule? You just go to the guy and say, look, man, you got to throw the pitch. What are you doing?
Yeah,
pretty simple, right?
The guy's he's a good reliever. He's a closer, and I don't know other than I think it helps if you tell the catcher, this guy's got a problem, so you got to get him. You got to give him the signal. You got to tell him what to throw right away, so that he has a little more time to stand there and pick his nose or whatever he's doing in between. But then when he gets close, you got to be signaling him. Come on, let's go.
Now, when I'm watching the game, I can see the clock behind the mound. Does a pitcher have a clock in close view?
Yeah, there's one up against the screen and back there, away, not on the same angle as the catcher, but off to the side, usually on each side.
That a pitcher can see in clear view.
Yeah, they know.
So what's the problem?
I don't know. Maybe he doesn't understand numbers very well. I don't know, but some of these guys just agonize. There's a lot of angst about what pitch they're throwing, where to throw it, and they just say they need more time than that. There were complaints from some pitchers or the other one you hear is they're having pain in their shoulder or elbow or somewhere, and they need time in between pitches to recover. So maybe that's his problem. I don't know, but there's no excuse for this. There's just no excuse.
All right. Your thoughts on Stephen Kwan? You and I have been talking about him for a few weeks on the show now, but he's starting to get some more national attention. The last time we talked about him, he's got a new nickname, King Kwan.
Yeah.
But love his story. A guy who had to battle self-doubt, undersized, 5'9", 170. Never thought he was going to be a real baseball player. Thought he was getting over on the coaches when he went to Oregon State, and now, he's crushing it in the major leagues.
Yeah, he's in 2018. He was a round 5 selection in the draft, the 163rd guy picked. Right now, at this time, he is hitting 385. He doesn't have quite enough plate appearances to qualify among the league leaders, but they're saying by next week he will. He missed time with a pulled hammy, but he's not only hitting 385, he will be, when he has enough appearances to qualify, he'll have about a 60-point lead over anyone else in the major leagues in terms of the batting title. And his OPS right now is 1.011. Anything over 1,000, 1.000 is Barry Bonds territory. It's really high stuff, and he's doing it. He has 7 home runs, which for a leadoff guy is not bad. For him, I think it's real close to his career high for a season, more than he usually has. But it's not a lot of home runs for an OPS, which is on base plus slugging percentage. His on-base percentage, however, is .445, which he's on base almost half the time. He's already got 79 hits in 205 at-bats. This guy is a hitting machine. He's the closest thing now in the modern game to the great Tony Gwynn in terms of the way he hits, sprays the ball all over the ballpark. Great outfielder, has won 2 Gold Gloves in 2 years. Won one as a rookie. I can't say enough good things about him. He's terrific.
And by the way, the Guardians have third most wins in the majors right now.
Yes. He's doing this for a good team, and he's a big part of that. He's on base all the time.
You like their young talent, don't you?
Oh, I love their talent. They have a real likable team. They play a good brand of baseball. They run a little bit, and they hit enough home runs to keep you happy. They score a lot of runs. Their pitching's decent. They're okay. I would really pull for them in the postseason.
Hey, do you think that the recent slide by the Mariners might provide encouragement for Dipoto to actually do something of substance before the trade deadline?
Well, I think there's always hope there. Yeah, there's always hope. Well, he sure should, Chad.
They were up 10 games last week, and now it's down to 5.5, and they're trailing right now 2-0 to the Rays. They've dropped 5 of 6.
Yeah.
It could be a blessing in disguise. Maybe Dipoto will be like, okay, we'll go out and
yeah. Well,
get
that's
some
what
run
you'd
support.
hope because they need to do more just to show their clubhouse that they're in on this thing. You know, you got to tell the players, look, we're trying to help you. They need that.
All right, what's trending is coming up here in 7 minutes. Aaron Fentress is going to swing by and join the program at 5:20. We'll get his take on the draft with the Trailblazers. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. Chris Burkhardt is here. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, 5 o'clock. Our draft coverage will kick off tomorrow at 3. The draft starts at 5. Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad live from Moda Center from the Trailblazers draft party from 3 to 4:30. And then Travis Demers and Francis Williams will anchor Blazers broadcasting. The coverage will go throughout the night until Joe Cronin's press conference is complete. Aaron Fentress, Oregonian, going to talk Blazers coming up on the show at 5:20. OG Anunoby has opted out with the Knicks. He'll become a free agent. On the diamond, the Mariners, who have dropped 5 of 6, looking to get off the schneid right now. Bottom of the 5th in Tampa. The Mariners have evened up the game. It's now tied at 2 elsewhere. Guardians lead the Orioles 8-6 in Baltimore. Tigers shutting out the Phillies 4-0 in Detroit. Mets 3, Yankees zip top third at Citi Field. And the Pirates lead the Reds 6-0. All right, Rip City Drive. It's time for Hops Ticket Tuesday. We're going to give away a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops for your chance to sit in the Rip City Radio row, and we're going to do it right now. So we'll take caller number 3. 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. So if you would like a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops to sit in the Rip City Radio row, fire away right now. Centralia! Yakima!
St. Helens, where are you?
I drove through St. Helens the other day. I hadn't been up there in a while.
Yeah. On your way back from Seattle, or what was going on?
I drove through after I played at Wildwood.
Oh, I went back that way. That's probably a good way to go, huh?
I just it was a long way around, but
Scenic?
I really like driving through the scenic route up there. I mean, you used to live off Highway 30. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah, it is.
Especially this time of year when the weather's nice. And it is nice right now, man. It is freaking awesome outside.
I'll tell you, the houseboat in the summertime was gold. It was really fun.
And it was deep enough, too. You could bail off. I've been to your houseboat. You could bail off the top of the houseboat into the river, couldn't you?
Oh, God. My son and his buddies would come out, and they're doing somersaults and jackknives and everything off the roof.
That's
Which is
cool.
a tin roof, a metal roof. It was hotter than heck up there.
Oh, you're probably burning your feet.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it. Honestly, I wouldn't do it. But
Did you ever catch fish off the
many
side of the
times?
boat?
Yeah.
Really?
Late at night, my neighbor Holly and I would sit out there and pass the time of day and drop the old line in there. And my philosophy was you don't go back inside until you catch something. And usually the stuff I caught, in fact, all the time, I threw it back, try to catch it again the next day. But a lot of catfish, just some kind of junk fish. But that's an area right in through Multnomah Channel where they caught a lot of sturgeon.
It's amazing how things change, based on where you live. Like in Oklahoma growing up, we had fishing holes. So I would grab my rod. I had a rod, and I knew how to set it up and had my jigs or spooners or, if I needed to get, live bait, I could get that. But I had different spots around the lake, Keystone Lake, where I go and cast in. My favorite, though, was the pond that was on our land at the bottom of our 10 acres. I'd go down there and.
There were fish in there?
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
What did you get? Trout?
No, it was a crappie or bass.
Oh.
And I need to ask my dad. I don't know how the fish got in there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know who was stocking it, but I remember one day my papa and I went out there fishing, and he brought like this green plastic trash can. We had that thing filled with fish. I feel like we cleaned out the pond. It was amazing.
Wow.
And some of them were big too. That was a good day. That was a pretty good day.
I used to like the 100-degree days, and I had a big old truck inner tube.
Yeah.
Tie it to the deck.
Yeah.
I had those little things that you tie boats to.
Yeah.
I used to know what they're called, but now I haven't lived out there, forget. Cleats, and you tie your rope up, and then you just get in that inner tube and grab a book to read, and you just float right out into the channel.
No, I think we tied our jet ski up to the cleat when Isaac and I rolled up and visited you at the houseboat.
Oh, that was the greatest. Yeah, that was the fun when people in a boat or a jet ski would pull in and visit. That was kind of a fun thing.
Amazing that you can do that on the river. All right, let's talk a little draft. Burkhardt, I want you involved in this. Dwight, let's go ahead and start with you. We asked Dave Deckard the same question I'll ask you. At 7, based on who's likely to be available, like who would you like to see the Blazers? What player would you like to see them end up with? Who would be interesting to you?
Well, the key word for me is interesting, and that would be Klingon. And I don't think he's going to be there at 7. This is the kind of thing
Well, based on the mocks, he could either not be there or be available at 8.
Yeah, but like 2 weeks ago, I don't think anybody would have said he was going to be gone that early, but he's climbing all the time now. And I just think it would be interesting to watch a player of that size now in the league try to figure out a niche and a way he can play, because it's a lot tougher on those guys than it used to be. I think he's a player who is versatile enough. It would be fun trying to see him climb into a spot in this league.
Numbers-wise, not a great rebounder in college, but he is a great shot blocker.
Yeah.
He could be your prototypical rim protector potentially. Hopefully he's mobile enough to defend the pick and roll.
And people think he has potential as a three-point shooter. He's got pretty good fundamentals on his shooting, and we'll see.
I think for me it's Cody Williams. As Francis Williams put yesterday, high risk, high reward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at number 7 in a draft that, doesn't feature the big name player, I like high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
And I just can't get it out of my mind that the Blazers need a wing. They've needed a wing for so long that it would be very difficult for me to pass up on. If you have a small forward sitting there that you think can be, a big boom, it would be hard for me to pass on a guy like that.
For just before Chris gets in, I would say that a player that you might like as being listed a lot for Portland is from Tennessee, that wing, Connect.
Yeah.
Who's a shooter. Everybody says, as a shooter, he's probably ready right now. He probably shoots well enough right now. He's not going to lead the league or anything, but he's a good enough three-point shooter. You could let him shoot it. Other facets of his game would need work, of course. He'd be a rookie, but he's an interesting player too, Chad.
But then again, if their plan is to move off of Ayton sooner rather than later, then taking a center makes a lot of sense. I don't expect Robert Williams to be here much longer either.
No. The question with him is, how hard is it going to be to move him? Because everybody knows the same thing you and me know, and that's you're getting a guy who's great when he's healthy, but when is that going to be?
Well, I think his talent level, the good thing about Williams, even though he's had to overcome the injuries, he's rehabbed. He'll be ready to go at some point in the near future. His talent level is such that there's going to be a contender out there that will want to take a chance on him because he can help.
Yeah.
And we saw him with Boston. He's a tremendous athlete, can do a lot of good things. And, I mean, you've mentioned this, too, before with bigs, especially younger bigs. A lot of times you got to go through some bouts of injuries, and then you overcome them. And sometimes those guys later in their career will start to mend and put together 3 or 4 or 5 seasons in a row where they're able to play. We saw that even with – people forget this, but Sam Bowie, with the decimated career in Portland, ended up having a decent run in New Jersey with the Nets.
Yeah, and even later on with the Lakers, he played pretty well, too. Yeah, he did. He ended up okay. I was happy to see that, too.
Yeah, I just I feel bad for Robert because 2 things. One, going from Boston to Portland, 2 totally different situations. That's got to be tough. Going from Boston to Portland and living from one coast to the next in 2 totally different types of cities, tough. But then also you get in and then you're immediately injured and you go right into rehab. Yeah. And rehab for any athlete, I don't wish it up on any guy because it's tough. You're pulled away from the team. You're separated. You spend a lot of time alone going through your rehab process. And, mentally and emotionally, that can be very difficult. And I know it was a challenge for him. I hate to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, Burkhart, who's your player at number 7 that, if available, you'd like to see in a Trailblazer uniform?
If available, I really like Cody Williams. I think Dwight and I were talking with you earlier. It's a high risk, high reward pick because I think that's a player in this draft specifically that I don't know if you really know where his floor is, but you don't know where his ceiling is either. I think he has the potential to be really, really good. Just look what his brother's been doing over there in OKC. He's been an absolute stud.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. And, you talked about him a little bit with Dave. I mean, his ability to play small forward, be a little bit of a small ball power forward, a little bit of versatility there. I think defensively he's good. Just got to work on the offensive side, which I will contend is probably the easiest side for most players to fix. So I like him a lot. He's my personal favorite player in the draft.
What do you want to see this team accomplish throughout the course of this summer, starting with the draft tomorrow?
I think it just wherever they're going, Chad. I mean, whether it is thinking that they can compete or thinking they can put a winning team together, whatnot, I just want to see them pick that lane and just wholeheartedly dedicate to it. Like, I don't want you to. I don't want to see Malcolm Brogdon traded, vet guy for pieces, but then they just keep hanging on to Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton or whatever. Like, if you're going to go young, go young. And, the best way to get those guys developed the way you want is to get them on the court. I mean, if you go out and draft the Cody Williams, right? Well, you don't need to have him on the bench playing behind Jeremy Grant and Jabari Walker at the 4, right? Or battling with Tamani Kamara, right? You need him on the court. So if you're going to go young, go young. If you think that you realistically have a chance to go get that Brandon Ingram type guy and maybe you compete, then go do it. Either way, just dedicate to one and understand that that's where you got to go. No more of this, one hand in one jar, other hand in the other.
Commit, be confident, be bold, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what it takes. And you look at the good GMs in this league, they make those moves. They do.
Are you getting cold right now here in the
studio?
studio?
Aren't you?
It's cold.
Yeah.
I can tell your posture's changed over the last hour.
Well,
you're starting to come inward
I'm
trying to hug yourself.
Cuddling myself, yes. That's all I can do, man.
There's nothing
Right
wrong with
about
cuddling
this time,
yourself.
don't you think the 5 o'clock hour every day gets worse because it gets, I don't know, the air conditioning kicks in more. I don't know what it is.
My nipples feel different in the 5 o'clock hour than they did in the 3 o'clock hour. Yeah. It is colder in
Well,
there.
keep checking for me. I'd
How's
like
it
a
doing over there in the
report.
control room, Berkey?
Gosh, I walked out in the hallway a second ago to get some water, and it felt really good in the hallway. And then when I walked back in, I thought I was walking into a freezer in this room. Holy smokes.
I want to talk to the building manager. What's up with this place?
That we probably ought to do that on the air. I think that would be an interesting conversation. Hey, you got a couple guys freezing to death down here. Anything you can do for them?
This is rivalry.
It was shrinkage.
Yeah, rivaling the Jackson's Food Mart that you guys had to do.
Yeah.
It's chilly in here.
I'm thinking about
was
bringing
cold.
in one of those space heaters, really. I got one at home. I might just bring it in.
The Jackson's Food Mart. I got really cold in the final hour.
Oh, it took me days to recover from that.
I was freezing my balls off, man. It was
that
so
was
bad. First hour, I was like, dude, I got this, no problem. By the 5th hour, my leg was shaking.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. All right, Aaron Fentress, Oregonian's coming up next. We'll get his take on the entire plan. What does he think is going to happen in the draft? Who would he like to see them take? What's the plan with DeAndre Ayton, the whole shebang? Aaron Fentress coming up next on the Rip City Drive. All right, he covers the Trailblazers for the Oregonian. He is back on the show. Aaron Fentress is with us. Aaron, it's great to talk to you again, my friend. Who do you think is the ideal player for Portland to take at number 7?
Man, I don't know. How you gonna call and have me on and ask me crazy questions like that?
I'm sure you've got some type of inkling or idea or thought of who you might like to see them take at 7.
Okay, so what I did, this is because of my job, and I have to pay attention to stuff, is I went out, convinced myself that I'm going to look at these guys and watch 2 minutes of film on each, read up about them, and see if I can fall in love with somebody. See, that's the key. You just got to become enamored with somebody. Just get all excited. 2 years ago, I was enamored with Sharp, and they took him. I was very excited. Last year, I didn't really, everyone was like, Scoot's obviously picked. So my guy right now that I'm really enamored with, and I can't pronounce his last name, is Tidjane Saloon. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Saloon.
The French kid?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my guy. Now, 7 might be high, although like the mock drafts are crazy. I can't recall mock drafts in any sport I've ever covered being this volatile. Like, they're just all over the map. You got dudes in one mock draft, they're in the top 10, and another one, they're 22. It's just bizarre, right? So I don't know if that's high for this guy. I do know that, there's definitely some people with the Blazers who like this kid. And he's just one of those guys where it's like, okay, in a draft where it's kind of a crapshoot and it's not very deep, if you look at a guy who's 18, going on 19, who's 6'9", athletic, and ripped. Have you guys seen this guy with his shirt off yet?
Shredded.
He's like – yes. I was like, whoa, what the heck's going on with that kid at 18, 19? That's not right. That reminds me of who? Scoot, right? Athletic, agile, wants to play defense, embraces playing defense, can score in a variety of different ways, can shoot it from deep, still extremely raw. You throw him out there in an NBA game right now, in 30 minutes, he'd get completely exposed, right? Just like Scoot, just like Shaden, just like everyone else on the Blazers under 22. But, man, maybe in 3 years we could be looking back at this draft and going, that was the guy. So, for me, my fantasy at this point is that they draft the 6'9" kid from France.
Okay, Aaron, I want to ask you about the bigs. The Blazers are being linked to Klingon and Edey a lot, and they have a couple centers on their roster now, one of which is probably not going to play a lot without getting hurt. But aside from that, what do you think about them being linked to the 2 bigs?
Well, I guess the only reason why you would wonder about that is because they invested a lot in Ayton, right? And Ayton was the centerpiece of all the flurry of trades that they made, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been of the mind that they don't hit on Ayton, and that's going to set things back a long way because it's difficult to find athletic bigs with that kind of skill set, period, let alone if you're Portland trying to trade for one or sign one as a free agent. So if he can come through, if he can mature and grow and blossom here like, a Lauri Markkanen did at Utah after 2 teams gave up on him, then that would be amazing. But you don't know if that's going to happen. So if you like a center, here's the thing. To me, if you like anyone at any position, it's best player available. It doesn't matter what you have on the roster, because there's not one player on this roster that's guaranteed to become a star. There's definitely not one player on this roster who's guaranteed to become a number 1 championship lead guy, as far as I can tell. So yeah, if you like Klingon and he's there at 7 and you think he's the best player on the board, absolutely. I wouldn't take Edey at 7. I'd maybe try and get him at 14, I guess. But yeah. I mean, I'm kind of shocked that I would be shocked if Portland took him, though, because to me, if you're building everything around Scoot, which you're building everything around Scoot until further notice because you took Scoot instead of trading him to help Damian, the whole thing about him was his ability to run up and down the floor. So why are you going to give him a center who you have to wait for to get up and down the court? And they sold last year. The Ayton thing was he can get up down the floor with Scoot. So I don't know why you would go with a big lumbering center in this day and age. But if I do that, I do it at 14, definitely not 7. But I think the only thing I just say they just should not draft at all is another 6'3" guard. Whenever I see a mock draft having them taking a 6'3" guard, I just frown and just click to another page. That's the only thing. But again, if it's the very best player available, you kind of got to take them.
Hey, Aaron, who on the roster, the vets, do you think is most likely to be dealt this summer?
Ooh, man. That's tough. If I had to pick the most likely, I would guess Brogdon, because you have more time on the other two. But I think Brogdon, Ant, and Grant need to go. I think Brogdon needs to go for obvious reasons. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He's 31. Like, why? Grant, they signed him because they had to spend some money, and they also signed him because they still thought Dame maybe was going to stay. He's got 4 years left on this deal. His deal looks bad now, but in a couple of years it's going to look probably pretty good. But he's 30, going on 31. He doesn't fit your timeline. He's got to go. Ant, you guys know how I feel about Ant. I will take 2 or 3 days off from work when they trade Ant. I will weep. I will cry. I will mourn. But I want Ant to go. I want Ant to go because I just want Ant to get out of this dysfunctional mess right now where he's got to deal with Scoot at the point and he's got to deal with Shaden at the 2. It doesn't fit. It's just a mess. And so if you're committed to those 2 young kids, what's Ant here for? And Ant's only got 2 years left on his deal, and he's going to want more money, coming up. So to me, I want to see him go somewhere where he doesn't have to mess around with whether he's a pointer or 2. He can just be the lead guard on a good team and just flourish, which I think he will. So those are the 3 I think got to go sooner rather than later. If I had to pick one that maybe would go first, it'd probably be Brogdon. What do you guys think?
I agree. I agree with Brogdon. I think he's the first to go.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And I think Grant's a solid pick in that other spot too. He's marketable. And frankly, Aaron, I don't know. I wanted to ask you how you felt about this too, but if you keep Grant around, what's he going to do next year? He's going to probably help you win games. Is that really what you're looking to do next year? Seriously. No, I'm serious about that.
No, I know.
They haven't gone all in on the tank yet. And for next year, for that draft, they better.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so Grant is funny to me because third guy, if he's a fourth guy, that's really great. If he's a third guy, like he can help you win games. But on this team, he's almost a perfect guy where he's going to play well. He's going to be entertaining, right? He's going to eat minutes, almost like eat innings with a pitcher, but the pitcher has like a 4.3 ERA, so he's winning a ton of games. Because Grant his defense wanes when he knows they don't really care.
Yeah, who could blame him, really?
He doesn't. No, I'm not blaming him at all. I'm just saying that my point being is I hear what you're saying, that he obviously is one of their best players, so he can help you win some games, but he also doesn't rebound. Sometimes defensively he disappears. He had an 8-game stretch last year where he had 9 rebounds. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I covered some. It was during that January trip when they just got pasted. But yes, I mean, I'm sorry. I assume you guys have been saying this already, but I hope Blazer fans know that next year is even. This might be even greater than the tanking jobs they've already done.
Yeah.
They want into that lottery so badly. And remember, if they don't fall into the lottery, who gets their pick? My Bulls. They don't want to give up that pick, and they still owe it. It's lottery protected. They want in that lottery so bad because that draft, like this is like the worst draft to have 2 picks in, right? It's like going, damn, this didn't work out. They want 2 picks or 1 pick in next year's draft. And so they're going to do anything and everything to try to make sure that doesn't happen. The only thing that can really blow that up is if Scoot and Shaden make a huge leap, Ant stays healthy, and Ayton does what he did the last 2 months, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there like, oh, we're above 500, we're kind of in this, then maybe they don't pull the plug because it'll be too obvious and we'll all be all over them. But they won in that lottery so badly you can taste it. So those of you out there, a lot of people got fooled and hoodwinked last year and bought season tickets, and then 2 months into the season they couldn't give those things away because the team was bad. Don't do the same thing this offseason. Just know, or if you do, just know going in that their goal is to get back into the lottery. And that, I think, is going to lead them to, like, if they had a choice between a Dalton Connect or a Tijane or a Cody Williams, someone young like that, they're going to err on the side of the young guy with upside over the 23-year-old adult who can come right in and help you win because they don't want anyone to help them win. They want projects. They want projects who are closer in age to Scoot and Sharp and who are going to help them lose as they develop.
Yeah. We're talking with
Damn,
Aaron Fentress.
I
It's
I'm
true,
right,
though.
right? You guys agree with me, right?
You're speaking
No,
truth.
I agree with you.
Okay.
We've been preaching that. We've been preaching that for a couple months.
But it's the right thing to do.
Okay, good. Because I feel bad saying it because you're like it's just like it sounds kind of like smarmy, but
no,
that's the
but
goal.
that's the
No,
reality of it.
they chose the pathway, and I think it's the right pathway. And next year's draft is
Yeah, I
the
agree.
culmination of that, no question about it. The part that's weird about all this, though, is Chauncey Billups. What's your take on the situation where he's entering a lame duck year? They haven't picked up the final year on his contract. No one expects him to be back after this season, and yet he wants to win. And Joe Cronin and his staff have a different plan for next year in the draft. So help that make sense to me.
Yeah, my problem with all of that is, you know, he came to Portland hoping to win with Dame and that they were going to build around Dame, right? Everything goes haywire. We all know what went down, and it's a mess. And so now you're gonna tweak. Like you're supposed to make a couple tweaks. It's not supposed to take 3, 4, 5 years, right? It's supposed to be a couple tweaks, and then now it's taking. You're looking at. We're talking about 25, so you're looking at 4 lottery years. And here's the thing: if they play bad enough like we think they're going to, and they move these veterans off, I don't care if they draft 2 Cooper Flags next year. They're not going to be any good the next year. So you're looking at 5 lottery years by design. Who racks up those losses? Chauncey Billups. I will never understand these fans who blame him for the losing. It is unbelievable to me that you have fans who cry every night about how bad of a coach Chauncey Billups is because he couldn't get Rupert, Chris Murray, and Toumani Camara and Scoot to beat the T-Wolves, right? And you're complaining about him losing games with a franchise that's literally trying and wants to lose.
Yep.
So we don't know how good of a coach or how bad of a coach he is because he hasn't really been given the opportunity to coach a team capable of winning in the NBA. And it's completely unfair to his one-loss record because his one-loss record is 3 seasons filled with tanking. I think it's unfair to have him coming in as a lame duck coach because you're asking him to develop players that he may not be around to win with if they ever develop that way. Now, it's my understanding that he made the hires, these 2 new hires they made. So that could be a sign if they let him make these hires. I mean, you can always fire everybody. It doesn't matter, right? But that maybe they're thinking, okay, we are going to roll with you. But if you are, give him the extension now. Show that vote of confidence now because these losses should be on the GM more so than the head coach.
You know, Aaron, I totally agree with that. And I even take it further in that, you know, they actually they made promises to players on their next deal. We're going to give you X amount of dollars, but you're going to sit out the last part of this year. And there are a couple players who did that, knowing that it was okay to sit out. They weren't going to hurt their market value because they were going to be taken care of by the team. Fair enough. That's
right.
fair. Why not do the same?
Ant Grant.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Why not do that with your coach who's not making a fraction of what those players made? He's not a highly paid coach in the first place. Give him the last year for crying out loud. It only makes sense to me.
Right. And maybe their plan is, you know, that next offseason they're going to pick up the option, right? And so they in their mind, they're giving him 2 years. But my thing is, what's the measuring stick? How are you determining if he's a good coach or not?
Yeah.
If he does what you want and loses on purpose, well, you're helping him with that with the roster. I don't know where. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is that he isn't Cronin's hire. I mean, Cronin was there though when he was hired, so I imagine Cronin might have been in on those meetings. Although we all know Neil was targeting Chauncey, but I just don't know how you even evaluate him. Like, if they fire him or don't bring him back, what are they going to say? We want to go in a different direction? Okay. Why? He did a great job of sucking. And so now we're going to, I just don't, it's unfair to him. And I guess we'll just see what happens.
Hey, Aaron, who do you think Cronin likes the most in this draft? You know, 2 or 3 players. Who do they like?
Who do I think he likes specifically? I've not talked to him about any of the players in this draft like that. So I've talked to other people, and the people that I know that they liked are Klingon, Tijon for sure. Not high on Holland, but they are high on. What's the other G League Ignite guy? What's his name? I can't pronounce his name. The other kid, the guy who's supposed to go top 5 or 6.
Give me one
they
second.
like him. I can't pronounce his name. He played with Holland.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
You got it right there. He's in top 7.
Bazelis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then those are the oh my God.
Did they Connect, the kid out of Tennessee, the shooter?
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, someone told me that he's too much of an adult for them. Keyshawn George. There was some positives on Keyshawn George.
Uh-huh.
No, it's funny. We laugh at it, but this is what I was told. If this team were looking for a shooter at the 2 and 3, right, to help their winning cause, boom, he's your guy. But if you're not thinking like that, you're thinking more 3-4 years down the line, well, he's going to be 26, 27. Has he reached his ceiling? Does he have a huge upside? Not necessarily compared to some of the younger kids. So you get the younger kids who you can play a lot of minutes and develop them. They have bigger upside. And what are they going to do for you? They're going to lose massive games for you because they're not ready to compete at that level. And I don't think it was in the way. I mentioned George, and then I got I think those are the main guys in the top 15 that I got reviews on.
You know, Aaron, it seems to me when you're in this situation, boy, you got to hit almost everything that you try. You know what I mean? It seems to put a lot of pressure on your scouting department to get it right with some of these guys, because this year of all others, every time you've mentioned it, every time you see a mock draft, they're listed exactly the opposite of what you saw yesterday. You know, nobody seems to know the best, but always one of the first 7 or 8 or 9 turns into a pretty good player. It just seems like nobody knows which one that's going to be.
Exactly. Someone's going to pop, and we're all going to look back and go, oh.
Could have had him.
And, yeah. And 10 years ago, this draft has been compared to 2013, right? Isn't it supposed to be the worst draft since 13? Yeah. And who went in 2013? 15th, Giannis.
Yeah.
Right? And so is there a guy like Giannis, a 2-time MVP? I don't know about that. Or I think he's 2-time, yeah. I don't know about that. But there's going to be some guys who are going to pop. They do in every draft. And what I always find interesting is when people crush GMs for missing. To me, it's only fair, semi-fair, if someone picks someone at 7 and they're not very good, and then 2 or 3 really good players go within 5 or 6. What I hate is when someone picks someone at 8 and then say, "Oh, they could have had so-and-so at 24." It's like that doesn't really work that way. That's random luck. But if there's 30 players taken in the first round, which there are, and only 7 are going to be legit starters to stars, that's not a very high percentage of guys to get. So you can do your homework and feel really good about someone, but the math is just going to dictate that only 7 are going to pop in a draft like this if you go back and look at the history of the draft. So a lot of it's luck. But so you have to maybe be really good at locating those intangibles that really make you think a guy has the work ethic, the determination, the love for the game, so you at least know they're going to grind and work their way to reach their ceiling, because we all know sometimes that doesn't always happen in the NBA.
Right.
Aaron Fentress, Oregonian, covering the Portland Trailblazers. Dude, that was a great conversation, man. We appreciate it. Enjoy the draft tomorrow, buddy.
Okay, but listen, dude, we all 3 of us, and we didn't disagree once. I mean,
what's going on?
Together? Are we evolving together?
I think we are. Hey, real quick, are you excited about Caleb Williams or what, man? All the years of not having a quarterback as a Bears fan, and now you've got the Ferrari.
I've got what? Do I? Have I seen him throw a pass yet? You're talking to a Bears fan. You have to understand. I'm conditioned. I want armor up, man. It's like if a guy or a woman keeps dating people and they keep breaking their heart, you become hardened. That's how I am. I've been waiting for a franchise quarterback my entire life. I've been teased by Cade McNown and sexy Rexy Grossman and Cutler. And then Justin Fields just now. Justin Fields was supposed to be the guy. And now I got this guy from USC's hot shot. Man, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not investing any emotion into this at all. I've had my heart broken way too many times. If he becomes great, great. If he doesn't, it'll be par for the course as a Bears fan.
All right. Aaron Fentress,
Oregonian. I sound like I need therapy. I sound like a fan who needs some therapy right about
Well, you're a Bears fan. You do need therapy. Good gracious. All right, buddy. You're the best, man. Thanks, Aaron.
All right, guys.
All right. There's Aaron Fentress. We'll come back. And when we do, we got to talk a little bit about Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
He's got an exciting life outside of football.
Sure does.
Is there anything that you've ever had a desire to do, but you're like, I'm not smart enough to do that? We'll talk about it next. All right, Godfather, you got any high fives you want to hand out?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Joe Cronin, who needs a high five with the responsibility he's got going tomorrow. That's a big pick or a big non-pick, whatever they decide to do.
Yeah, it's big. He's got a lot of work ahead of him over the next few weeks with the draft and free agency. This is a big time.
Yeah.
Big, big time. Burkhart, you got any high fives you got to hand out? Anything on your mind? Anyone you want to give props to?
No, man, multiple. It's all tied together, though. The University of Oregon, they released this awesome little documentary on social today about the tie between Oregon and Nike. Go find it on the Oregon football Twitter account. Pretty awesome. They're also supposed to be unveiling one of their brand new uniforms tomorrow, courtesy of DeAnthony Thomas. So I'm hyped for that. And then did you see that the NCAA football game, Chad, they're going to do a deep dive on their gameplay and all that tomorrow. So, college football, baby, right around the corner.
I love that. How about Brandon Cooks, who put in the time and has got his pilot's license and is now flying around, and he's got a couple of planes. How awesome is that? That is crazy. Cook was 9 when he first got on a plane flying by himself from California to Pennsylvania for the USA track and field meet. Quote, I really didn't think nothing of it. I didn't think to be scared. I didn't think to have fun. I remember looking at my mother, and I remember her making a big deal. She'd never been on a plane. I think her first time she was on a plane was when I went to college. So she was like, you've got to understand how special this is. That's pretty amazing. I've thought about what it would take to do that. There's just certain things that I've wanted to do, but I'm like, I'm not smart enough or don't have the ability to do that. But flying a plane is pretty crazy.
I just never had enough confidence in my intelligence to really think I could do that. I think it just takes more brain power than I've got.
The ESPN story said Cooks went through a series of classes and had 40 hours of flight time before earning his license to become a visual flight rules VFR rated, which means the pilot can operate in clear weather using landmarks as guidance. Not long after, he went through an intense 14-day class to become certified as Instrumental Flight Rules IFR rated, which required another 50 hours of flight time. RF-rated pilots fly by the use of instruments during poor weather conditions. That's pretty awesome. Quote, he got his instrument rating on his first try, which is hard, Cook's wife, Brianna, said. He studied. He was zoned in. He had one-on-one teachers. He was focused in. He really needed to know his stuff. That's pretty awesome. That's a different level there when you can fly by instruments alone.
He's very fast on the football field, and people have said in the past, that guy can fly. Yeah, he can. Really.
Quote, my first one, you're simulating takeoff, Cooks added, and that's where a lot of stalls happen because you put the nose up too much, so you're forcing the plane to get into a stall, and it's like pulling pounds of pressure, and you hear the plane stall, 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 and the stall breaks, and then the plane just goes, and so then you push the nose forward, add power, and you recover. But when you see some of those videos, it's one thing to be in the plane, but then you see the video before you go to the maneuver. You're like, wait a minute, I'm about to be pretty much vertical. I'm not a rocket, so the stalls are the ones that still to this day when we practice definitely gets my stomach for sure.
You know, Chad, it's like bungee jumping for me. I never want to be in a situation where one mistake can absolutely end my life. And that's that flying an airplane, small plane like that.
Well, I saw someone landed a small plane on the Columbia the other day, too.
Yeah, I heard about that. Gosh.
I used to have a buddy that I knew when I was younger. I was probably 18, 19 years old at the time. His name was Lyle. He went on to become a pilot, but he was, collecting hours. And so he would take me down to Pearson and take me up in his little small plane. And we'd fly over Vancouver, fly around Portland. We'd go out to Troutdale, touchdown, and he'd take back off again. And it was pretty cool. I felt safe with him because he was like a flying nerd. So I knew that one look at him and when he was in the captain's chair, and I was like, okay, we're good here. I had confidence in Lyle.
I've been trying to think of how many friends I have that I would trust going up in a small plane with them. I have a few friends that I trust, but not as many as they think I might have. Yeah.
Well, what is something is there something you've wanted to do that you didn't think you had the ability to do, so you didn't pursue it? You ever had anything like that?
Well, yeah, I think at one time, law school. Yeah. I think I could have done it. I just think I couldn't really get myself to invest that much time and effort into studying something that hard.
Yeah.
I just never enjoyed being in school much.
Yeah, I had an advisor that was encouraging me to go through law school. I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
I don't want to be in school that much longer.
What about you, Burkhardt? Is there anything you've ever wanted to do, but you didn't think you could accomplish it, so you just backed out and focused on something else?
I don't know. That's a tough question. Like I can't think of anything really. Yeah, that's a tough question.
Would you fly, Chris? Would you try to get your pilot's license?
I would do that. I don't have a fear of that. I would do that.
One of the guys I play golf with all the time, his name's Dan. Great guy. He was a pilot for UPS for his entire career. He and his wife were both pilots. He just sold his plane that they owned, and they would take it out on weekends and stuff. And they liked flying down to Salem and getting breakfast there at the airport, and then flying back. And then they just got to the point where they got older and didn't use it as much, so they sold it. I think he sold it for about $250,000. That's a little chunk of change on an airplane there.
Have you ever visited one of those little air parks? And there's one out past, I don't know if it's near Molalla or where it is, but it's out there somewhere in the Oregon suburb wilderness area. And the streets are wide enough that the planes can go down. They keep the planes in their garage, and then they just tool down the street and go out to there's a runway out there, and then they all just fly. The guy was telling me, oh yeah, we go down to Astoria for dinner and get some fresh seafood once a week or so, and that's part of their life.
It's like that over there down in McMinnville by Linfield.
Yeah,
they got an airfield like that, and when I drove by a couple months ago for OSA stuff, you're right. Like the houses have giant freaking garages, and it's just for their Cessnas or whatever they're flying.
Yeah. The
That's
whole
amazing.
neighborhood is nothing but homes with airplanes.
What?
And they have somebody, I think, who they don't have a control tower, but they have somebody, I think, who they can radio and find out if there's other traffic in the area or if they can land, all that stuff. Incredible.
That's pretty awesome. I think for guys like Cooks, you see this with a lot of athletes. Once they establish themselves in their career, a lot of them will take the time to go back to school, or they'll find something like flying planes. They find other interests, and I think it helps divert their attention from just solely focusing on football.
Yeah.
They start to – it can be a healthy distraction. Elway, he got into car dealerships and ended up building a small empire that he sold to Wayne Huizenga, who was the owner of the Dolphins. But, you find other interests. It helps take some of the pressure off, so you're not solely focusing on just ball all the time. So, cool that Cooks can have an outlet like that to fly planes, right? Other guys get into golf. Some guys will.
A lot of golfers now.
What did Karl Malone do? He drove truck, right? 18-wheelers.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Shaq wanted to be a cop. Some of these guys do want to get into law enforcement.
Can you imagine getting pulled over and all of a sudden you see Shaq with his badge get out of the car in uniform? I'd be like, sir, what?
Yeah.
Well, whatever you say, sir.
What did I do?
All right, that's going to do it for us. Big thanks to Dave Deckard and Aaron Fentress for joining the show.
Big day tomorrow, Chad.
It's a big day. Draft coverage will start at 3. Justin Myers will have Rip City mornings at 6. Our draft coverage will start at 3 live from Moda Center. The free Trailblazers draft party gets underway at 5. The coverage on 620 Rip City Radio will go throughout the evening. Travis Demers and Francis Williams anchoring all the way up until the end of the draft with Joe Cronin's press conference. Big thanks to Chris Burkhardt. Godfather, have a good night.
You too. See you tomorrow.